Working smarter, overcoming procrastination. Procrastination can be defined as the art of delay, not starting, not stopping, not completing things. It could be something that you encounter from time to time as a result of your behaviours. You put things off, you don't start things, you don't finish them. But even if you have that self-discipline or procrastination is not a behaviour trait for you, you may become the victim of other people's procrastination, where they put things off and you have to chase them, or you face the consequences in terms of delay or distraction and so on. Procrastination is defined as the art of delaying or postponing a task or set of tasks. So whether you refer to it as procrastination or crushia or something else, it is the force that prevents you from following through on what you set out to do. It seems to be on the increase, whether it's because of the modern lifestyles we all live, where there's more opportunity than time allows, or maybe there's just a consequence of having a lot of opportunity, it becomes difficult to choose. In this session, we'll examine some of these reasons and some of the solutions for it too. Repeatedly putting off a homework assignment until the night before it's due. Many of us will have experienced this, and whether this is a work or a student thing, we can all relate to that particular problem. In a slightly larger context, wanting to start a new positive habit, such as dieting, exercising, or saving money, but repeatedly delaying it while telling ourselves that we will start sometime in the near future. Tomorrow, next week, next month. And then having a good excuse as to why we can't do it now. So why do we put things off? Well, some people will tell you they do their best work with a deadline or with pressure or in the last minute of doing something. So for example, writing a presentation or an email. We may have a week to prepare it and we do it last thing late at night. But we are convinced that we do the best work because of that. On a more practical note, we will tend to put off things which we don't like doing. We tend to put off things we're doing for the first time, which are difficult, or indeed have a high focus of visibility. Things that we are judged on, or maybe have a high consequence if they're wrong. And that fear of failure or fear of rejection is something that puts us off engaging with the task or project. That might explain the homework example. Most publishers will tell you that majority of authors are late delivering a manuscript. They will also counter that the book is never finished, they just publish it anyway. The thing with procrastination, the more you do it, the more you do it. Interestingly, we tend to put off small things like opening bills or making difficult phone calls or household tasks we dislike. These are small and trivial in many ways with very few consequences. The bigger forms of procrastination should concern us more. Perhaps not studying, not completing tasks which are important for us, not keeping up to date with our knowledge, and so on. Now let's look at three things: types of procrastination, solutions, and how we eat the ugly frog. There are 4 types of procrastination as behaviour types. Sociologists have studied this and come up with these 4 categories: the performer, the self-depreciator, the overbooker, and the novelty seeker. Let's look at these in more detail. The performer: I work well under pressure. This type of procrastinator really creates a situation where they have little time to do something, and so they have to get it done. That will, in a way, force them to create the task and complete the task. For some, the issue is simply falling back into old patterns and beliefs we have about our 11th hour saves. No matter what, being in the habit of putting pressure on yourself is not sustainable. In many cases, it is detrimental to our health, our well-being. causes others concerns, and really doesn't always get the best work. You can always tell when an email, a project, or a report is completed under duress and pressure. The biggest challenge a performer will have is getting started. The solution is often as simple as simply setting a start date. When you focus on when you're going to begin a task and not when you hope to end it, you'll take a tremendous amount of pressure off yourself. So, for example, you have to complete a report and the deadline is the 15th. Write down the start date as the 10th. Make an appointment with yourself in the diary, have it pop up and remind you, and then you start on it. It's the start date that will motivate you, not the end date. The self-deprecator who says, I'm so lazy right now. I don't feel like it. I'm no good at these things. I can't do this properly. So it's not that they're lazy. They just don't really take the time to recognize their strengths. They're too hard on themselves, maybe slightly pessimistic about their own ability. It's not uncommon. A lot of people do this. They tend to blame inaction on their laziness or stubbornness, maybe some personality trait, rather than admit they're tired. What they really need is to be kinder to themselves, get some sleep, get some rest, and stop doing quite so much. If you've had a really busy day, working at high speed, doing lots and lots of activities, of course, when you get home or when you have to do something you don't want to do, you won't have the physical or the emotional energy to focus on it. The biggest challenge these folks have is taking a break. So we already know you're going to stay, you don't have time to rest. Ignore that. Find the time. Recharge. Take a walk. Relax. Rewind. Early night. Early start. Eat properly. Rebuild your energy. The overbooker almost sees being busy as a badge of honor. They often boast about having back-to-back meetings and being so busy it's crazy. So this type of procrastinator is an absolute expert at filling up their calendar and loves, in a way, it seems they love to be overwhelmed. I'm so busy is the excuse they use. Interestingly, some of the busiest people get the most done. But then when the busyness comes up as an excuse for not doing some things, it's often a way of avoiding that task or event. Rather than facing a challenge head on or admitting they don't want to do something, it's easier to blame the situation, the context of being busy. How do we get over this? The biggest challenge you face is creating chaos. This is often to avoid facing what you know you need to face right now. And typically this is not the task. It could be some fear of failure, some fear of rejection, or maybe admission that you're not very good at one particular thing. Or perhaps you feel undervalued, or you don't feel worthy of the task and the job that you have. Take a moment of introspection and ask yourself, what am I really avoiding? Finally, the novelty seeker. Hey, I've just had the best idea ever. This procrastinator has a terminal case of what is nicknamed the shiny object syndrome. They're coming up with new projects to take on, new ideas to implement, new themes to talk about with their colleagues. And then they get bored of them a week later. They're intrigued by the latest trend and will be quick to implement, but really don't follow through. They're great starters, but not great finishers. They're great at making decisions and taking action. However, they may end up losing a lot of time and burning out because they don't take consistent action in one direction long enough to see results. The energy and focus drops off and drips out quite quickly after they started a project. What they seem to like is the thrill of the new, not the thrill of completion. Or rather, what puts them off is that rather dull, consistent pace that you have in the middle of any task or project. So you're going to design a new presentation, a spreadsheet. You need to set up a meeting. It's the beginning of that particular process is great. The middle becomes rather mainstream and standardized. It's not particularly exciting. It becomes a bit uneventful, and they peter out and don't follow it through. It remains uncompleted. The biggest challenge is completion. Make it stick. Literally, write down your ideas or projects on a sticky note, but don't pursue them until you have finished what you're currently doing or currently working on. Here's one example if you suffer from this from buying things online. You often see things and go, hey, look at that. Click in the basket, purchase, 2 days later, knock on the door, new item in the household. Instead, click in the basket, wait 24, 48 hours. Go back in, open the basket. If you still want it then, order it. If you don't, and you probably won't, take it out. It's the thrill of the purchase. It's the thrill of the idea of starting the task that excites you, but you won't see it through, and it won't have the same gravitas or meaning when you get to the other side of it. So which one are you? Most of us are a combination of the 2 or 3 of these, and maybe in different contexts we are different types of procrastinator. At work we might be the performer, but our home lives might tell us we're the overbooker. See if you can recognize these procrastination types in yourself and of course in others. Now let's look at it slightly differently as to why we procrastinate. As I've mentioned already, these can be disliked tasks, difficult tasks, things which are new, things which are complex, or things which have a relatively high risk. In his excellent TED talk, Tim Urban talks about the 3 interactions in your brain between the rational decision maker, the instant gratification monkey, and the panic monster. Now the panic monster will frighten the instant gratification monkey away so the rational decision maker stays in charge. Simple, but there's a lot of truth in this. The gratification of doing short-term easy tasks can often create the fuel to procrastinate. The task that we're putting off tends to be done when we really have to, and that creates not always our best work. Most students or those people who have studied for exams will know only too well that the instant gratification earlier in a term is often having to be balanced by long hours late at night studying for an exam a week or 2 before. Here are some practical solutions. A phrase or mantra as just do it or do it now can actually encourage you to not put things off. A difficult email, a difficult phone call, paying a bill, it doesn't take nearly as long and it's not nearly as difficult as you think it's going to be. The salami slice method means taking a larger task you keep putting off and breaking it into small pieces, either by time or tasks. So let's imagine you have a large area of your house you need to clear out and tidy. The thought of spending a day or 2 days doing it means you keep putting it back. So set a timer and do it for 15 minutes, 20 minutes every day. Or divide it into sections and do one section at a time, one drawer, one cupboard, and so on. Going public, telling other people, friends, family and colleagues that you will do the task you keep putting off, will create a certain amount of peer pressure to get it done. Do not take too much time in unrealistic deadlines. So don't take on things. Don't say yes too quickly. Pause. Let me think about that. We often are bounced into accepting things due to wanting to keep the peace or being seen as helpful or a team player. But in actual fact, we are being unkind to both ourselves and the people we keep saying yes to. Making appointments with yourself is one of the most powerful ways of dealing with procrastination. Actually writing in your diary, schedule or planner when you're going to do the task you want to keep doing so that it becomes a fixed schedule. Another way is to keep nasty jobs for certain specific times and reward yourself on completion. If, for example, you don't like doing your expenses, then get in the habit of doing expenses at certain times of the days or week with the reward of some nice treat. And finally is to do the worst first, which of course leads us into the famous mantra of eat the ugly frog. This refers to an essay written by a famous American essayist who said, if you have to eat a meal with a frog in it, eat the frog first. It doesn't get any better by looking at it. If you have to eat a meal with 2 frogs in it, eat the ugly one first, on the same principle. Do the thing you don't want to do first thing in the day, first thing in a conversation, the first thing when you sit down at your desk. Launch into tasks and get them done quickly, but get them done well. And get to the point in conversations. Often if there's a difficult question or a difficult point to make, we will avoid it unconsciously until we run out of time.